Okay, folks, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Just want to say thank you, so happy Friday, and thank you so much for spending your morning with us. Today we'll be talking about down payment assistance, which has been a buzzword and hot topic for the past few years. So wanting to spend some time to dive into what that is. So really excited to dive in today with our panelists. Before we get started, I just want to remind you all of just a few housekeeping guidelines. So closed captions are available through Zoom using the button labeled captions at the bottom of your screen. Please turn your video on if you're comfortable and able to. We'd love to see your faces. Please remain muted throughout the entirety of the event. There will be a brief Q&A at the end of the event, so please send any questions you may have in the chat throughout our time together, and we will compile them during that session, that part of our segment. Then the best view for today's event is speaker, which will highlight myself as well as our two guest speakers. Now, before we dive into down payment assistance, we want to take the time to do a land and labor acknowledgement. At Urban Homeworks, we acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that European colonizers stole from the Dakota peoples indigenous to Minnesota. For this theft to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. We also acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that was cultivated and developed by bodies that European colonizers stole from West African countries through the transatlantic slave trade. In order for this theft to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. We acknowledge what was taken from our collective human ancestors. As we do so, we commit to work and fight for the liberation of the descendants of those enslaved through American chattel slavery and the sovereignty of all Native peoples. Thank you all. We're so excited to have you here today. And we want you to know who's speaking on down payment assistance. So I'll introduce myself and our org first. My name is Temi, and I'm the Equity Engagement Director here at Urban Homeworks. For those of you who don't know our org, Urban Homeworks is a nonprofit headquartered in North Minneapolis, and we focus on affordable housing, ensuring our families and individuals have safe and dignified rentals to call home. We also pursue home ownership pathways opportunities to provide wealth building opportunities through home ownership for our families and individuals who are seeking that. I want to give an opportunity for both Heidi and Tara to also give a quick introduction. So if you two wouldn't mind giving us your name, title, organization, and preferred pronouns, that would be wonderful. I'll start off with you, Heidi.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. My name is Heidi Welch. My pronouns are she, hers. I am a supervisor at Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. And is that it? Yeah.
Good.
Hi, Heidi. I'm Tara Beard, and I also use she, her pronouns. I'm the housing director at the City of St. Paul in the Planning and Economic Development Department.
Wonderful. We are so excited to have you both here today to talk about down payment assistance. So people have heard about it, some people know about it, but we want to really create a shared understanding of what we're talking about. So I'd love, Tara, I'll kick it off with you just to explain, like, what is down payment assistance?
You bet, Tammy. Thanks. So I think most people, intuitively, anecdotally, if not from a data perspective, understand kind of the ways that housing costs have risen faster than incomes. And so the idea that you can, leverage a mortgage product to borrow money to purchase a home has become more and more out of reach as those home prices have gotten beyond what an income can support a mortgage for. And so down payment assistance programs are basically meant to cover that bridge between what a household, often a lower moderate income household, can afford to get a mortgage for based on their ability to, maintain that debt service, and the cost of housing, which has just increased so much. So that's kind of the real simple high level explanation.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tara. We hear so much about down payment assistance, and what people might not often realize is so many different orgs and entities have their own variation of it. So there is not one size fits all with down payment assistance. With that in mind, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how your org has been administering your own down payment assistance program.
Yeah, you bet. And I just want to say too that I've been really happy to be part of collaborative conversations organized primarily through the Minnesota Homeownership Center, who've been convening the two large cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, and the two large counties, Ramsey and Hennepin. And we've been meeting for well over a year to really get our arms around how to provide a better universal down payment assistance system and a set of best practices so that we're all kind of providing, if not exactly the same product, we're learning from each other about the right product and being intentional about the ways that we are right sizing our own products. And with the huge influx of state funds that are going to become available specifically to first generation home buyers for down payment assistance, which I'm sure Heidi could talk about, that's even more important that we really understand all the different programs out there and how they can be used either together or can't be used together, so folks know what is best for them. At the City of St. Paul, we focus our down payment assistance program on households that are at 80% of area median income or below. Our average AMI, or area median income home buyer, through our down payment assistance program is somewhere between the 50% and 60% of area median income mark. And I think part of why we're able to do that is because housing stock in St. Paul is relatively affordable compared to partner cities and other communities in the region, but it's still out of reach for a lot of folks. So what we provide, and I'm really proud to say these are changes that we've made just in the last 18 months since I started at the City of St. Paul, is we have shifted our down payment assistance program to be a 30-year repayable a loan that has to be repaid either when the home is sold or at year 30, whichever happens first, to a 15-year forgivable loan that is forgiven in an amortized way each year. So 1/15 is forgiven annually. And if you stay in the home for 15 years, you are fully forgiven. And so that's that's something I have the privilege to be able to implement thanks to a very supportive mayor who really wants to do more than just get names on a mortgage at the absolute maximum of their borrowing capacity, but actually build wealth and create space for homeownership for folks who might have a little bit less left over, even if we're using that same 30% of their income towards their housing costs, kind of as a benchmark. So those are two kind of specific aspects of the program that are really great. We serve anybody within the City of St. Paul. You can purchase a home anywhere in the City of St. Paul. We do not have price limits on the home you can find. So if you have the ability to, get a mortgage for a fair amount and still are eligible for the down payment assistance, you may be able to access neighborhoods that, even if you could buy without the down payment assistance, you wouldn't be able to access. And we're funded through the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is funded by a variety of sources, sales tax revenue in the City of St. Paul, and some parking revenue that comes from parking ramps that the City of St. Paul owns and operates. And so that gives us a lot of freedom to design the program the way that we think serves the City of St. Paul the best. So I could kind of go on, but I feel like that might be a good high-level place to stop, and maybe questions or other questions will bring up more about the program.
Yeah, no, that is so helpful, Tara. For people who don't know, with area median income, AMI is commonly used, especially when talking about income, programs that have income limits and things such as that. So when Tara is talking about the program being for families and individuals at the 50 to 60% AMI level, for a family of four, that could be about a family for the 50% AMI level is about $62,000 they're bringing in. At 60%, that's about $74,000. So I'm including a link just to provide context as we use that terminology of what that would look like for people in the audience today who are trying to see if I fit into that bracket. So we have that information for you to look at too. Tara touched on this, and Heidi, we'd love to hear from you again. We know this past legislative session was monumental, and one thing we want to highlight is Agbaje's down payment assistance bill. That, I mean, Urban Homeworks was also a part of testifying and advocating for that because we knew how important it was, and we'd love to hear from you where we're at with that after the celebratory passing of all that went through the legislative session this past year.
Absolutely, I can give an update on that. It's very, very exciting. Would you mind if I just give like a 2-minute commercial for our down payment assistance programs before we talk about the legislative
Absolutely.
stuff?
Absolutely.
And one of the reasons that I just, really think it's important is because our programs, because we're the housing agency for the state of Minnesota, not the city of St. Paul or, a specific county, our programs are available across the entire state. So any person who's looking to purchase in the state of Minnesota, in any county in Minnesota, in any city in Minnesota, can potentially access our programs. And we do have down payment assistance and closing cost loans available for people who are looking to purchase around the state. We have 3 different options. 2 of them are deferred, which means that there's no interest and no payments. They are loans, so they're not grants, they're not gifts, they're not forgiven, but it's allows people to access a no interest, no payment loan that would be due sometime in the future, like if you were to sell the home or possibly refinance, no longer using that as a primary residence. And then we also have a monthly payment loan, which can also be used for down payment assistance and or closing costs. That one is a 10-year loan. It does have an interest rate on it. You would make payments on that one at the same time as you're making your first mortgage payment. And after 10 years, then that would be paid off if you were still living in the home. Our loan amounts go up to $18,000 for our down payment assistance and closing cost loans. And we also use an area median income structure, but we've gone a little bit further than the 80% area median income cap, and we actually go up to, I want to say 115%. I'm not 100% on that, but basically what that translates to people is that if you're in a household of 3 or more people, that income limit is roughly $143,000. So it's very user friendly. A lot of people think that they have to be in a super low income range in order to access some of these programs that are available, and that is not necessarily the case. And we do have a minimum borrower contribution requirement, and that is $1,000. So essentially, technically, you could get into owning a home with $1,000 out of your own pocket, and the rest could be covered by using our programs. So just wanted to make sure that got out there so that people were aware of that. But then back to your question. So yes, the legislative session was a very busy session this past year. Historic amounts of money put into housing programs, and runs the gamut, not just for down payment assistance, but all sorts of housing initiatives. That's very, very exciting. Lots of stuff happening here at the agency. We are very busy these days. But specifically the down payment assistance bill that was passed is geared towards first-generation home buyers. So not just first-time home buyers, but first-generation home buyers. So someone essentially, so that this person would be the first person in their family that is going into home ownership. So really strategically trying to support the neighborhoods and populations who have historically been underserved and not receiving access or help getting into home ownership, which is generational wealth building. And there's just so many fabulous positives about owning a home. And Minnesota Housing, we were awarded $15 million. And we are working very hard right now to get the program essentially up and running and out the door. There's a lot of work that has to go into programs getting stood up when you're kind of starting from scratch. We can't just, flip the button and have the program go. We've got systems work to do, just lots of stuff, lots of conversations with everyone involved so that we're doing it right and we're able to get it active. Our goal is April of 2024. So ideally it will be available and ready for the spring buying season in 24. Again, that's a goal. We are on track, but as anyone who ever works with computer systems and all the things that go into that knows, just because we're on track now, we might come into some big bump and that might have to push back. But at the moment, we are on track to get it out the door in the spring. The loan is going to be up to $35,000. It can be layered with our existing down payment assistance and closing cost loans, which are up to $18,000. So a first generation home buyer could potentially be getting $53,000 from us to help them get into home ownership and help with that gap maybe between the purchase price and the affordability. The loan is going to be deferred. So again, it would be structured as a zero interest, zero payment. It is a loan, but the $35,000, the first generation program, is going to have a forgiveness factor built into it. So if the buyer lives in the home for 10 years, on the 10-year anniversary of their closing date, half of the $35,000 would be forgiven. And then if the buyer lives in the home for 20 years, on the 20th anniversary date, all of it would be forgiven. So the $35,000 after 20 years of living in the home as a primary residence would essentially at that point turn into a grant. Go away, no debt obligation owed at that point. So that's we're very excited about that as well. And then there is another first generation down payment assistance program that is being managed by MMCDC. And for those of you who are not familiar with, we in the housing industry love our acronyms, right? So that's just, yeah. So the MMCDC is the Midwest Minnesota Community Development Corporation. So MMCDC is they have been awarded $100 million, and again targeted specifically to first generation home buyers. That's called out in legislature, and they will be overseeing the $100 million. They are working with us, with Minnesota Housing, and then my understanding is that I'm not sure on their time frames. I'm not working directly with that organization, but they will be awarding essentially. I imagine there's going to be some type of a request for a proposal process where they're taking applications from housing organizations and counties or whoever the case may be around the state. And then the MMCDC will be kind of sharing that $100 million out to some of those organizations who will then be administering those funds directly. And so they're still working kind of on getting their program out the door as well. I don't have specific timelines for them, but I know they're also trying to get it out as quickly as possible and ideally have it be available for the spring buying season too. They are structuring theirs a little bit differently than we are. They are, theirs is a 5-year term. So ours is 20 years, theirs is 5. They have built in a prorated forgiveness factor. So each year, 20% of the amount that is awarded for the first generation loan will be forgiven. So by the end of year 5, the entire amount will be forgiven. And the way that they are structuring is they are doing either 10% of the purchase price or $32,000 is what would be available. And their program also can layer with our programs, but it doesn't have to. So a buyer could work with, a bank or a lender, a mortgage broker, whomever the case may be. And if they're potentially eligible for this MMCDC first generation program, they don't have to work with Minnesota Housing in order to access their program, but they could. So it's got some flexibilities there. So yeah, I don't know. Do you have other questions about it? I know I just threw a ton of stuff at everybody. So
no, so much information. It's so helpful for folks to hear just how many options are available to them. And that's why we really do encourage people to click on the links that we have in the chat to look at the very specific ones that we'll talk about today. I mean, Heidi alone just mentioned about 3. So wanting to know more information, I really do encourage everyone to click on those links. But it's so exciting and it's so awesome to hear just what is available out there from a state level. Then we have city specific with St. Paul, and even at Urban Homeworks, we get a little even hyper specific with our down payment assistance that we have just launched. So it's not even available to all of Minneapolis, but focusing in North Minneapolis. And we offer our DPA is in the form of a grant, and the recipients will receive $20,000. But stipulations such as you have to have lived or currently live in North Minneapolis and are seeking to purchase in North Minneapolis. So those are 2 big stipulations that we have. And we don't have income limits. So you could be at the 80% AMI level or 120% AMI level. So that allows any individual or family looking to buy to be able to access our grant. But, we've just talked about so many, and you hear various stipulations. And as a person who's listening in, trying to navigate the options we've just heard, I'd love if both Tara and Heidi, if you want to select maybe one of the programs, but would love to hear more information on, who can apply. Because I'm listening in, I'm like, could this be for me? Could this be for my family? So Tara, I know you touched on AMI levels, but if there are other stipulations such as area of St. Paul, or does it have to be in St. Paul? Do I have to be a current St. Paul resident? Some questions, maybe you could specify a little bit more.
Absolutely. So you do not have to be a current St. Paul resident. You just have to use the money to purchase your home of primary residence within the city of St. Paul. And the way we structure our down payment assistance program is that we have layers underneath an umbrella program that can impact how much down payment assistance you can get. So that 80% AMI limit is kind of the point of entry for our base layer of down payment assistance, which is $40,000. And if you are a first generation home buyer, we can add $10,000 to that, and you can go up to $50,000 in down payment assistance. Again, fully forgivable after 15 years. But we also have an incredibly powerful layer of assistance that is specific to the community that was displaced in the construction of I-94. That is one of the many kind of racist outcomes of racist policies that destroyed affluent communities of color and strong communities of color for transportation development. And, one of my frustrations as a housing practitioner over my career has been how we talk about and acknowledge the disparities in all sorts of housing across race, but we're asked to, because of the Fair Housing Act's unintended consequence, we're asked to address those disparities with race neutral policies. So much of my career has been trying to figure out how to serve those most affected, any kind of household of color, but especially foundational Black or African American households, be the primary beneficiary of these programs to truly address the disparities. So again, with the kind of powerful political support I have from Mayor Carter, we created what is called the inheritance fund layers of our down payment assistance program. And there's a couple things that are different about the inheritance fund layers, which can be added to those first two layers if you can check those boxes as well. But we will serve households up to 100% of AMI if they are an inheritance fund descendant. And again, these are folks who are direct descendants, so child, grandchild, great-grandchild, great-great-grandchild of a property owner whose property was taken for the construction of I-94. And that represents about 700 homeowners and some other commercial property owners as well. So if you are a direct descendant of any of those folks who were paid for their properties, but at much lower rates than the other communities that were not communities of color that were, destroyed for the construction of I-94. Furthermore, the impact on a community of color to be displaced like that in the 50s when racial covenants were still a regular practice of the home buying industry, the limitations on where they could even take that money to go buy another home had a totally disparate impact on these communities. And there's been estimates that over $157 million in generational wealth has been lost to this particular community in St. Paul because of the construction of I-94. So we go up to 100% AMI if you are an inheritance fund eligible applicant. And if you are inheritance fund eligible, you can receive an additional $50,000. So if you're at 80% AMI and if you're at 80% AMI or below and inheritance fund, you're looking at up to at $100,000 in down payment assistance. And then we went one step further and said there was this generational wealth that was robbed of so many descendants, but there was also a community kind of destruction to community wealth. And so without wanting to, which I think so often with good intentions do, without trying to incentivize or prioritize folks to want to live in a certain area, we wanted to acknowledge that there is a community repair that's happening if folks happen to want to buy that home in the historic Rondo community. So there's a final modest additional $10,000 that can be added for a total of $110,000 in down payment assistance for inheritance fund eligible applicants that also wish to purchase in the Rondo community. So this has been an exceptionally exciting program to launch. We've been able to do this because it is a geographic-based program, not a race-based program, but we know that the predominant race of homeowners that were displaced for I-94 in the Rondo community were foundational Black households. And so far, everyone we've served through the Inheritance Fund has been the descendant of a Black property owner whose property was taken. So, we are a small but mighty team. My budget and my staff is only 2. And so we work as fast as we can, but we get about 15 to 20 down payment assistance awards out per year. And so far, 4 of those have been Inheritance Fund recipients. And we just launched that program and started working on it in earnest in May. But the uniqueness and excitement around these programs has meant so much interest, and so much more interest than we are able to serve. So unfortunately, right now, it's important to share that our wait list is currently closed. We need to serve the folks that have already signed up, and focus on serving them versus kind of creating lists that folks are going to have to wait more than a year or two. It's really not helpful. So we are serving folks as fast as we can, and are hopeful we'll be able to open the waitlist again in probably like spring of 2024. But I'm, given the current climate with interest rates and the real lack of supply, I've been amazed that we've been able to serve folks at a steady pace, at the same pace that we were before. But there are a lot of folks that are finally up and ready on the wait list and aren't actually mortgage ready. And so we're working on improving our education and outreach to folks that are on the wait list, so that they realize when you're up, you do need to have had some sort of conversation with a bank about what mortgage you can get. This is down payment assistance. It doesn't buy your home for you, and help folks understand, especially at low incomes, there are some programs out there. There are some mortgage products out there that are specifically for lower moderate income home buyers that do have some relief from these skyrocketing interest rates. There's a few products, and we don't ever want to steer anybody, but we want to make sure people are aware that there are some mortgage products out there that, if you income qualify, can offer some interest rate relief. And so we're working right now on trying to do our best to educate folks that are on the wait list so that they can be really prepared when they do come up. But again, I got to be honest, I'm thrilled we've been able to continue on a steady pace of closings through this really tough market.
Absolutely. That's amazing, Tara. I love hearing that. I mean, I was just talking to one of my colleagues a couple of days ago about the realities of what this time with such high mortgage rates and how it's still keeping people out of the market. And I love hearing not only just how amazing that down payment assistance offerings are that you're providing, but also how you're trying to ensure that families and individuals are prepared to receive it, and knowing the other parts of that and receiving down payment assistance. So thank you for that, Tara. Passing it off to you, Heidi, we'd love to also hear more again about, just as I'm thinking about applying for down payment assistance, how do I know if this program is right for me?
Well, that's a great question. I want to share a couple of things. So the programs that we have are for first-time home buyers. So somebody who is, and our definition, we use the tax code definition of a first-time home buyer, and that would be a person who has not had an ownership interest in a primary residence in the last 3 years. So that's our definition of a first-time home buyer. This first generation program that will be coming in the spring goes a little bit further beyond the first-time home buyer definition, in that they are actually a first generation, like the first person in the generations to be purchasing a home. We also do have programs for non-first-time home buyers. So sometimes maybe someone owns a home right now, they're going to sell that, but they still need some help getting into the new property, need some down payment assistance. We do have programs to help with that as well. We also have refinance options. So we have, I think sometimes when people think of us, if they even know about us, which is one thing that we struggle with, they think that it's only for first-time buyers only, and that's not a true statement. And then just kind of, I just wanted to touch on, Tara, what you mentioned education a couple times, and 100% get educated, because that's part of, I think, having the education will help you figure out and know that you're not alone. That's part of what a good loan officer is there to help you with. A good loan officer will either already be familiar with the programs and the options that are available, or they'll help you do the research so that you can figure out, because, for example, our programs can layer with other community down payment assistance loan programs. So you could use us, you could use our down payment assistance program, and you could layer in, I'll get a little crazy, but I mean, I've seen up to 5 different types of down payment assistance layered into, you know, a person's loan. And by doing that, by stacking all of those, you can really take advantage of the different monies that are out there. And instead of just having this much money, you can have, you know, possibly this much money to help with that affordability factor and to help get you into housing and to help have a stable housing payment. I mean, one of our, you know, part of our mission is not just that we help people get into housing, but that we're getting them into housing that is stable, that's affordable, that's in an area that they want to live in. You know, those are important things. It's a choice, and it should be a choice. And so going back to the education piece, there are many housing counseling agencies around the state. The services that they offer are free. They provide home buyer education, which typically is, you know, about maybe an 8-hour class, but it's so full of really good information. And if you haven't purchased a home before, it's a huge thing, and it's a lot of information, and there's a lot of pieces, and it'll help you kind of figure out what some of those pieces are and give you some general knowledge about how that whole process works. It's, you know, typically they touch on credit, budgeting, the mortgage financing part of it, the home inspection, title companies, the role of the real estate agent, kind of covers all of the pieces. And then beyond that, those housing counselors, many of them also provide financial coaching. So maybe you meet with a housing counselor and maybe you're not quite ready. Maybe you need to do a little work on your credit. Maybe you need to do some work with the budget, pay down some debt, do some things like that. You can work with them. And again, these services are free, and you can work with them, and they will help you figure out a plan to get you to the point of being mortgage ready. So again, going back to your comment, Tara, if you have people coming up that are eligible for the funds, but they haven't started yet, and then they're not ready, then that's just sad, right? That's just sad for everyone involved. And so one thing that people can proactively be doing right now is getting the education, sitting down with one of those housing counselors, take that education class. And the Homeownership Center of Minnesota oversees the housing counseling network around the state. And so if you are, if you're not sure if you're mortgage ready, strongly would recommend checking out the housing, the HOC. There's the acronyms again. The Homeownership Center of Minnesota, checking out their website. You know, make an appointment or sign up for an education class, or take some steps to sit down, review your credit, look at your budget, do the things that you need to do so that when these monies become available to you, you are ready to take advantage of them. So that's probably one of the biggest messages that I can say right now, with all of the things that are available right now and all of the things that are coming from this historic legislative session, is take the steps to get ready so that you don't miss the opportunity, right? And did you want me also to go into more detail on like our program specifically, or
No,
just kind of?
that was perfect. That was perfect. You both have so wonderfully just walked us through your programs and things people should be thinking of as they try and navigate their own home ownership purchase process. With all that we've talked about, you know, and given that you both have stated that you've been in this field for a while, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you feel is working with down payment assistance and what's not working. So, Tara, I'll kick it off to you.
Sure. And I kind of already mentioned that, when I came to the city of St. Paul in the spring of 2022, there were very different parameters around our DPA program. It only served folks up to 60% AMI. It had to be repaid. And there was just the one layer of assistance at $40,000. So I think that one of the things I'm proud of, or that I think is working better, is to think about these specific priorities and the inequities in homeownership and how we can design these programs to best be able to be deployed in the way that's most likely to be able to serve households of color and especially foundational Black households at a higher rate than certainly than the private market is able to serve. And at this point in time, 33% of households of color own their home in the city of St. Paul. And in our down payment assistance program, we're serving at about 50-50 households of color and white households. So we want that number to increase, and I think it will with the addition of the inheritance fund. But I'm glad that it's higher than our existing rate of homeownership amongst our households of color. The other thing that I think is working really well is that 56% of our down payment assistance recipients are coming into home ownership from being St. Paul renters. And anyone who wants to purchase a home in St. Paul is certainly eligible for this program. But it's especially exciting to know that we are helping build the wealth of existing residents and bringing kind of that ability to build wealth and like really change the trajectory of your life and the generational outcomes that you can provide your family in home ownership. And I think that's another great thing that's working. Brett, one of the challenges, one of the things that's not working is the adaptability of the programs when things like interest rates affect how much people can borrow. It's just you all know when you have money, it's so much easier to make money. And when you don't have money, it is so much harder to make money. And so we really have to, and I'm proud that we've gotten more out collectively. I feel like down payment assistance programs have gotten a little bit more out of that mindset of, someone borrowing to the absolute hilt that they possibly can, which when you do that and you are earning $200,000 a year, you still have plenty left over. But when you're borrowing to the hilt of what you possibly can, and you're in this, and you're earning $60,000 a year, there is so much left over, so much less left over. So really opening our minds to down payment assistance truly being a wealth building opportunity and recognizing that that is a benefit to the whole community, not just that household, and worth the investment. So I think that that's a really important kind of change in the tone of down payment assistance programs, which I think is really, really important and really works. But I would say, this issue with how interest rates affect kind of the ability to borrow, if we could continue to work toward designing programs that have some sort of ability to address that. And that, I think that means more partnerships with lenders, understanding better these products that are out there for folks at lower interest rates. I think too, exploring, one of the things we've explored at the city, and it's so complicated, but we have to keep trying, is could we use some portion of the down payment assistance to buy down interest rates, to buy points? So I think that's one of the things we have to keep trying to crack the nut on. But I think a lot of great things have been coming. And I think that, the benefits to providing homeownership opportunities to folks who want that and are able to make it happen, but for, the inflated housing prices that incomes haven't matched, I think we have to do everything we can to make that happen.
Wow, thank you, Tara, for that. Heidi, before I jump to you, just want to lift up to our audience, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask our panelists, please put it in the chat and we'll make sure to ask them with the time we have left remaining. But Heidi, love to get your perspective on what you feel is working and what's not working with existing down payment assistance programs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start with what's not working, because I feel like, yes, of course we can always do better, right? Like everything could always do better. We can be more intentional, and as much as we try to be intentional, we can take that further, and there's always room for improvement. So, but in general, I think I think that they're working. I think the thing that's not working is that people don't even know that they're there. And, you know, one of the things that we struggle with, we are very intentional about trying to get out into the communities, especially the communities who have historically been underserved, and you know, getting the awareness out there that we exist and that we're here and that we have programs and that we can possibly help. And I think that a lot of the down payment assistance, it's a lot for someone to try and figure out on their own. And a lot of people don't even know where to start. And so the struggle, I think, is again just that awareness and getting the information out there, that so that people have the information so that they can feel positive about the fact that they might be able to, you know, to use that assistance or several types of down payment assistance and leverage that into homeownership. And so I think that's, you know, that's what's not working. And that is something that we have struggled with. And in the events that we work at, typically over event season, it starts around March and goes through September, October. And we try to do, we usually do about 25 to 30 events out in the community where we're staffing. We have a table, we bring information, and we're talking to consumers, and we're at consumer events, not, you know, industry events. I mean, we're trying to get to the people. And I cannot even tell you how many times we'll have the conversation, and so many people, their response back to us is, well, I didn't even know you were there. I didn't even know this was available. I didn't even know. I didn't know. And so that's what's not working in my mind. And how do we get that message out there? What can we do better to let people know that there is possibly help, and that homeownership can be a reality, and you don't have to have 20% saved up in order to buy a house. That's another myth that, you know, we struggle with. And so the messaging, I think, and just getting it out there, really.
Yeah, no, that is spot on, Heidi. I think there's so many resources out there, and it's exciting, but it means nothing if it's not getting into the right hands.
Correct.
And there's so many, we work with so many individuals and families who are seeking and hoping to buy a home, and they cannot afford it. And to Tara's point, that idea of what does it look like to allow the assistance to kind of buy down that interest rate, that's actually a meaningful conversation to have. But what I love seeing is that we're starting to open up the opportunities for deep down payment assistance through stackable options, which wasn't something that was always an option. But like you both have mentioned, just within your programs, the ability to stack different offerings that you provide. With Urban Homeworks, we only have one DPA, but we allow it to be stackable with other programs. So, you know, we're able to get to a point where you could have $110,000 in down payment assistance versus, well, I got 5,000 here. And while that's meaningful and nice, it doesn't begin to scratch the surface right now when there's an 8% mortgage rate right now. And I love that that's a direction we're going, and we need to continue to push the envelope there. But I love this conversation we've been having, and we don't have that much time left, so want to just ask one more question. And first, I want to thank you both, Tara and Heidi, for your time and sharing what you guys are doing in your spaces. You've been giving a lot of insight about the education process and things potential home buyers should be thinking of. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how down payment assistance affects how long buyers stay in their homes, and most importantly for our potential home buyers, how does it affect the buying process? So I'll start with you, Heidi.
I mean, in general, at least with our programs, it shouldn't really affect the home buying process. So a borrower still needs to be able to be approved for a standard mortgage. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, RD. As long as they're able to be approved for that. Beyond that, we have a couple of additional requirements, but it's really not that much more than any type of a home loan that you would be pursuing. And so our lenders, they process, they underwrite, they close, they fund, they do all of the pieces just like they would if we weren't involved. So we're almost kind of a silent partner in the whole thing, other than, you might be able to access some down payment assistance that you wouldn't otherwise get if you weren't using us. And so there really shouldn't be an impact, or it shouldn't really affect. Now, one thing I will say is that unfortunately, not every real estate agent, but there are some real estate agents out there who view a borrower who's using down payment assistance to help them purchase a home, or levels of down payment assistance, as maybe not being as wanted of a buyer who is not using that. There's I think a not necessarily correct and not necessarily positive view of borrowers who are using down payment assistance, and then when they submit their offer to the listing agent, sometimes the listing agent has maybe not had a great experience in the past or something with the down payment assistance program, and so they have kind of sometimes a negative view on a borrower who is using a program versus one who is not. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes that view can get passed on to the seller, who then may decide to take a buyer's offer who is not using down payment assistance, because they're thinking that that might be an easier process and a better chance of the loan closing. So that is something that I think possibly can affect the buying process for a borrower. And I think it's unfair, completely unfair. We've worked really hard to try and get language removed from the purchase agreement in Minnesota that calls out that borrowers are using additional financing. In my mind, it's not really anyone's business but the borrower and the lender. We did have some movement on it. We got it removed from one place on the purchase agreement, but then they snuck language back in somewhere else. So we're still working on, still trying to get that removed completely. As far as how long they stay in their homes, just in general, that time period has been trending up. Several years ago, first-time buyers especially maybe would stay in their first home 5 years or so. Then it moved to like 7, and now it's really closely trending more on about 10 years. And I don't necessarily know that having down payment assistance affects that length of time specifically. It just allows borrowers to get into a property sooner than maybe they would have been if they had to come up with that financing and that down payment and the closing costs and whatever the case may be on their own. So
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that insight, Heidi. We only have a couple minutes, but Tara, I'd love to hear from you, just anything you've noticed in the buying process as it pertains to down payment assistance.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, our program is kind of new. It started in 2019, and we just had a massive change and overhaul to the criterion and how it's designed. Just kicked off this past March. So I don't have a ton of kind of good data on outcomes or how long folks are staying in their home. But I think that, yeah, we're absolutely realizing just how there's just so many people that touch this work. You know, it's like we can provide the down payment assistance, but there's the title company and there's the realtor and there's so many other aspects. There's the assessment. I mean, and there's like, you know, the same kind of structural racism embedded through each pieces of those parts that like that I think we just need to keep daylighting and keep working to unpack and make our things work together. I would echo all of, you know, Heidi's comments. We get a fair amount of calls from lenders and brokers that are really interested in the program and want to know more about it so that they can, inform potential home buyers about it. So I think, you know, we've found a really nice niche of both private and non-for-profit kind of mortgage lenders that are really want to be a part of this work. And we like I said, our wait list is closed because the interest is beyond what we can even do right now. But I think everything Heidi said makes sense. And I would echo that and just say that this is a real, you know, this is an ecosystem and the down payment assistance is one piece in a complex process. So the more we can continue to improve how those pieces work together, I think the better, and the better that will serve the folks in the actual homes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, you both. I cannot thank you enough. It's crazy that our hour is already up, but I just want to say thank you to Heidi and Tara for joining. If you want to stay involved in their work and especially like hearing when the DPAs go out or the waitlist is open again, we've just put links in the chat to stay connected. Quickly want to give you guys an opportunity to say other ways they can stay connected or support your work. Tara, Heidi, any?
Yeah, I mean, we make announcements through our social media channels. So the City of St. Paul's, Facebook and Twitter accounts are going to have announcements as soon as we open the wait list. Read the paper. You know, we try to get as much press as we can about the program. The mayor is incredibly proud, especially of the Inheritance Fund. Visit our website and figure out how to receive our social media updates. And that's probably the best way to stay informed.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah, we post on all the channels, LinkedIn. We will be doing some type of press event when we roll out the first generation program in the spring. Also, we will be probably not today, but sometime next week. I don't have an exact date yet, but we have created a web page on our website specifically for the first generation loan program that's coming in the spring that will be available. We're just waiting for a couple final reviews of it. It's ready to go. So sometime next week, that link should be live. And then we will be sending out an e-news notification as well to like our realtors, our home education providers, and a network of people to let them know that that's live as well so that they can start sharing with consumers. But our website is open to the public, to anyone. So check it out. There's lots of great stuff there.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, I encourage you all, please subscribe to the work that is going on here and stay connected. We also want to urge you to support Urban Homeworks. We're putting links in the chat to donate, follow, and subscribe to our email list. And events like these are made possible by our wonderful community of supporters. So we thank you for showing up, showing out for us. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time and wishing you all a happy holiday. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.